Welcome. And with us today, I have Anthony Porter. Anthony, thanks so much for being here.
Hello, hello. Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate it.
So, all right, you're not a homeschooler, but you're delving into this field. Can you tell us
Mhm.
how this has sort of happened in your life?
Yeah, it's so funny. It really was drawn to me through nature education. I've been doing nature education for the last 8 years around the US. And in that time, I created curriculum a little bit. I got into teaching kids outside. That got into nature skills. I got into a little bit of survival skills. And then ultimately, it just kind of landslided into a publisher reaching out, being like, hey, we should get together to create a knowledge base of what you have for kids to get out and do nature education. So yeah, I ended up just getting into like a published nature book field where I got to make all these activities and critical thinking skill activities to get kids outside and happy with their bodies. And it's been a really fun journey. And I've been viral on social media for like a couple years. So it's been fun to kind of see the dichotomy of I'm making kids books, but also making like funny adult content. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, I kind of don't know where I fall in the social media either. I'm like, I'll post something like totally anti-government, but then here, how to teach your child. And it's somewhere
Yeah,
along the line, the audience like relates to them both. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So walk me back a couple more steps. What even made you think that you'd want to get into teaching kids about nature?
Yeah, I mean, just from how lucky I think a lot of us feel from growing up in a space where outside time was encouraged and it was almost second nature to us. Forgive the awful pun, I guess. But yeah, I think that, I mean, the more and more technology progresses, the more and more we have to remind ourselves to get back to our roots. And I grew up kind of doing a little bit more of, I guess, how would you say, like Boy Scouty stuff. But then over time, that really grew into my identity. And then I told my parents, I don't want to go to college. I just want to go out in the woods and protect a plot of land with my life. And that's how I'm going to live. And then my parents like, that's cute. No, we saved up. You're going to college. So I was lucky enough to do that, but I pigeonholed myself to do like parks and recreation, conservation work, and teach like outdoor education and leadership classes through my college. And it really just exploded into this online education platform that I have that I make people laugh a lot of the time. I make people learn a little bit. So I'm just trying to find that balance. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
And so my growing up was more of kind of like the city life. I'm not from New York City, but just a couple hours north. And we were never, like, nobody ever encouraged me to go outside, other than my mother would call from her desk at work in the afternoons during the summer and say, you better get in that damn pool. I'm not paying for that pool for no one to use it. But that was like the extent of be one with nature. Okay. So I never had that.
Yeah.
And it never even crossed my mind, right? Like that, if you're not aware of it, you don't even know that you're missing out on anything. But when I met my husband 11 years ago, he lived out in the country. And so the first time I came here, I thought, oh my God, this guy's coming to kill me. This is why they tell you don't meet somebody on match.com. So I I did end up moving in eventually, but like it was this whole era of like, oh my God, there's a stink bug
Mm.
on the door. I can't even walk in the house. And I would like hide in my car till somebody came home to like get the stink bug off the door. And then now I am a little bit, I am definitely more like, let's not kill the bug. Let's put it outside so it can be in its environment. So I have totally made it like a whole 180 there. Let's not spray
That
to
sounds
kill
like a
all.
Hallmark movie. That is like the exact premise of like a Hallmark, like lady in the city and guy from the woods meet up and they clash
I
worlds.
think
That's your entire thing,
they call
Cheryl.
it
I love
Green
it.
Acres is what they do.
I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny because now, with my son, I'm like, well, why would I subject you to a classroom for 6 hours a day? It seems to me if you wanted to learn about the world around you, you'd go in the world around you, right? And
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's such a weird concept. So I love this. And I actually just signed him up for Boy Scouts this week. I didn't even know they still had Boy Scouts.
Oh
So
man.
what would you say to the mom that was the person that was like me who just doesn't even know anything about like why nature is important?
Yeah, I think that's a huge challenge because how are you going to relay that to a kid if you're not into it? And you don't have to be into it. As a parent, this isn't like your call to, I mean, it'd be awesome if you were, but you don't have to like I don't know, be something in order for your kid to be part of that thing. So a lot of what like the journal that I made is like, so my Epic Nature Journal, you can go with it with the kid if you want, or just let them roll with the nature journal, and it has specific prompts for them. But essentially, all you have to do is leave them the opportunity to get outside and leave them that opportunity to explore themselves. If you instill your fears of the outdoors, and I think that's a challenge. Like, don't limit your children based off of your preconceived notion of fear. Obviously, like, yeah, rattlesnakes are a red flag. Like, making sure that those are your red lines, but leaving a lot of wiggle room. Like, I told my mom all the time, like, my mom isn't super outdoorsy, but I went on walks a lot of the time, and I'd be like, hey, mom, I'm going to go walk around the block. And she wouldn't typically do that, but she enabled me to do that. And then that allowed me to go a little bit further. And there were some cow pastures behind my house. And then I walked into those. And then I walked into the hills. Then I got to the state park. And so by the time I was in high school, I was taking these like 3-hour long walks going like out into the woods. But that, as a parent, you don't need to like be this encyclopedia of survival knowledge in order for your kids to enjoy the outdoors. Just give them the space to do so. And that's kind of why I have this book that I made.
And what is it called?
Oh, yeah, look at that. Plug time. My Epic Nature Journal and then this one says by Outdoor Anthony. That's my little online moniker. But yeah, by Anthony Porter. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, all the good stuff. But yeah, it's just a little 70-page booklet of activities to get the kids outside, reflection pages. Like today I sensed, today I felt, I heard, I touched. So getting that sensory, physical body, I guess, just being insanely present in a kiddie way out in the outdoors is where I'm at.
It's
That's
so
it. That's my
important
plug.
because it does bring you kind of full circle to like why we're here, how we are one with nature, we are, one with the earth.
Yeah.
Grounding is just so important. I had never even heard of that until the last couple of years, getting into the homeschool groups. So you show up to these homeschool groups at, the first couple, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're saying to your kid, hide your bagged peanut butter and jelly and goldfish. Like these people are going to think we're nuts. And, they're eating all
No,
organic and, but they're doing things that are,
it's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
no,
amazing
I've
to see the
learned.
changes that people have made.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm drinking raw milk. It's illegal in New York. I have to like get it undercover, like I'm buying drugs or something. So, yeah, it's really cool. It's a whole world that has opened up for me. And you know what I think is cool is my kids see me learning right along with them. And you're right. I don't have to be the encyclopedia. I'm there to actually learn. Like we are doing a little nature study right now, so it's like learning about mushrooms, and it just kind of brushed the surface, but I'm like, wow, there's so much to learn about this stuff. And then you go into like just survival things, how to make a fire, how to find clean water or
Yeah.
shelter that's safe depending on the elements if you're dealing with like a hurricane situation or tornado. It is just so cool that there's just so many different aspects to learn about. It seems like you could just your entire homeschooling could just be delving into things in nature, really, because it goes into everything, into space, into
It is.
even into robotic stuff and computerized stuff, because all of that comes, well, where does a microchip come from? It's got to come from a part of the earth. Okay, we excavate it out.
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask you this: do you think that there is, because I have to get conspiracy theorists on everybody a little bit, do you think that there's a
Might as well.
controlled design to kind of push the masses towards this just look at your screen, kind of like not to delve into what's really going on in the world around us and how it all works? And or do you think that's all just like, hey, this makes us money and that's why we're doing it?
Yeah.
Like there's not money to be
Um,
made in
that's a
going
great question.
outdoors.
I mean, I think we're just such a product of our environments, and if you create that as your environment, that's how it's going to go. So I think what happened is just like broad scope, like America is a trendsetter. Like we'll start there. So America is a trendsetter, and we love capitalism. And capitalism literally works in that free market setting where, yeah, if you make something cool and then people have it, like people have it. So I think it wasn't intentional to create to where we're at now. But now that the systems are in place, like let's take, you just mentioned Match.com. Let's take the dating apps. Like they have openly admitted that their job is not to, like their goal is not to get you off the app. They're not going to put themselves out of business. Their job is to make you match a bunch of times, have conversations, go on one-off dates all the time. So their goal is to keep you on the app. And
Interesting.
no matter if that was the original intention, that's where we're at now. And I think that's across the board with anything digital. I mean, you're making attention a part of your growth capitalism corporate planning. I don't think it is a grand design, not a grand conspiracy, but it's just inherent to our culture. And it's just kind of yeah, what are the two things? Like sodium is like pure sodium is totally harmless by itself. And like pure, I think it's like hydrogen there's like two elements. It's totally harmless by themselves. Makes total sense. When you put them together, that's when you get like really insane chemical combustion. So I think that's where we're at. It's been like a victim of circumstance, and then the people that are on top have capitalized on it. And I think I'd like to say it's not malicious, but it's just not accounted. Like it's not accountable. Like the accountability isn't there. So
Yeah.
taking things a little bit off the beaten path, I think is the right way to go.
Yeah. Now, what do you see are the benefits to children who do learn about nature, who are out in nature? Have you kind of studied the overall, like the
Yeah.
kids that are on the screen all the time or in the classroom versus the kids that
Yeah.
are out getting fresh air and grounding?
Yeah, I was teaching a class in Minnesota, and we had kids from all walks of life. Especially there's the local commune that brought kids in every once in a while, and to see the difference in like a kid that was raised just even like in Minneapolis or just outside in Duluth versus like a commune out where like there's one car and one phone for the whole community. It was crazy. I mean, the kid was like so resilient. He was covered in dirt all the time. He had dreadlocks. He would jump off stuff that would like the other kids would be like terrified to jump off of. He was, I mean, it got a little feral at one point. Like he was wrestling kids and punching kids. But like at a certain point, you can see the health benefits and like just the societal benefits of being so raw and unplugged. And it was such a huge clash of culture. We actually ended up having to expel him because he's gotten a little too many fights. But because that's like how he and his brothers would like communicate. They'd like wrestle a lot. And he tried to do that with the people that were not in this kind of ideology. And a lot of these kids are, I don't know, from like marginalized communities in the middle of Minneapolis. Like it's a totally different landscape.
Yeah. They just want to
But
learn like what
I
a
do
tree is.
exactly. So I do see the insane benefits of health, of self-confidence. Then again, we are in the 21st century, and we also have a lot of awesome benefits of being a part of that. So really like seeing where that blend is for your kid, I think is one of the best things you can do as a parent. But the benefits of being outdoors, I mean, I'm in Tahoe. Literally everyone here is like a transplant from somewhere else that doesn't adhere to the values back home. So this is kind of a runaway for a lot of the people, especially my age, that felt that childhood call to go to nature, but couldn't. And so now we're all up here skiing. Everybody up here is like not a ski bum, but like ski enthusiast, super outdoorsy. And I'll say like you don't see any obesity up here. There's like a high level of like education with folks around here. Even though the locals that have lived around here that maybe didn't reach all the way through the finishing of school, they have like a general knowledge of the landscape and have just become natural stewards of the land just because of that. So yeah, just environmental, like not even knowledge, but environmental comfortability is the name of the game. And if you can give that to your kids, bingo.
Yeah. And I also think a lot about how like our ancestors all knew how to grow food and, find water and build shelter and that sort of thing. Like it just for centuries and centuries, everyone has learned
Yeah.
that it's been passed down. And only in the last like generation or two, maybe your grandparents probably knew how to do that stuff, but your parents maybe not. And there are very few left. So what do you feel about that? Do you think that's
Yeah.
ironic that because of the technology, we just abandoned needing to survive?
No, I think that it's exponential growth of humanity. I think that, I mean, even your grandparents, if you talk to their great grandparents, they might be having the same conversation about how to ride a horse, So I think the level of differentiation it's prevalent across all different generations. However, I think the exponential rate of technology leads to exponential disassociation to history, and that's just the way that the world works. I mean, the more that we have now, the less that we have to worry about in the past. So there's a challenge there for sure. But really, I mean, we're at this crazy point in our human history to where, yeah, like the internet some people can say that's the most evil thing in the world. I mean, if it was up to me, maybe I'd press a button to turn it off. But we have such incredible access to all the knowledge. And then using that wisely could be one of the best things you ever teach your children. And then knowing when to get off of it to go apply the knowledge that you have. So, I mean, if you just take us at like stamp value of where we're at right now, regardless of history, I think we're in this fantastic position to do exactly what you're doing, Cheryl, and getting out and forging your own path for your family. So it's a really exciting time. And I think the more variety, I mean, that's the name of the game with nature is diversity. The more diversity you have in educational structures and like, I mean, genetics, but like, we don't have to get into that. I think it's just, yeah, it's incredible. I mean, when I was like a really young kid, I don't think like Waldorf or Montessori or just like alternative learning styles were even like talked about other than like these insane fringe people. And now those are just super mainstream. So getting into more and more of that, it's really exciting.
It is, yes. When I started interviewing homeschooling families and they talked to me about Waldorf and the classical education, I'm like, this sounds like, like Trump's kids or the Obama kids would get it. Like, this is something that people just do in their
Yeah,
communities. And now it is, it really is this sort of hands-on learning and tailored to your interests, which is crazy.
I'm into it. I'm going to do my kids
Yeah.
that way. I mean, I don't have kids, but I don't know what their names are going to be. I actually want to name my kid Valkyrie, and I think everyone's going to not let me do that. But having kids doing like, yeah, experiential learning as much as possible. I mean, 100%. I don't see how like my kids, I'm always scared that like when I become a father, I'm going to push them too hard towards nature and they're going to rebel against something because they're kids and that's going to be what they rebel against. So like leaving them the opportunity to just go find their own adventure. Like I'm a huge proponent of like outdoor activities. I love archery. I think I encourage a lot of people to find their totem of what gets them outside because not everyone's like, oh my gosh, like what are the vascular properties of this leaf? Like they're more like, oh my God, I found like this cool stick and I'm gonna swing it against this tree and see if it breaks. Like that's fine. But finding that totem that gets you outside, for me, it's archery. But for my kid, like I'm not going to impress archery on them. I'm going to see what they find. But still have that general like aura of like, yeah, like spend time, like go out there and then play. It's way more nice than this like carpeted 4x4 wall room that we're in.
Yes. And I think like too, so as parents, we're kind of in this push pull of there's, the 40-hour work week and the drive to and from,
Yeah.
and then the sports afterwards. And, there seems to be always a birthday party or something on the weekends. You're just go, go, go. That when you have a moment, it's like, okay, just sit in front of your screen so I can sit in front of mine. And it's sad. So it's like,
Yeah.
what do we have to do? We got to shift something, right? Because we're just not meant to be spending all our time apart as a family. Like you go in one direction and I go in another. And that was a big reason for me to leave my job in homeschool because I was thinking, gee, 30 years or 35 years of saying only 20 more till retirement, only 15 more till retirement. It's like, and then
Yeah.
what? You get to retirement, your
Terrifying.
kids are gone. Nobody needs you anymore. So that was a big shift for me. But also like you can say no to the sports. You can, for instance, later on today, we meet with a homeschool group that just does either kickball or soccer or manhunt once a week. The kids just get together to do that. So they're getting that benefit of playing the sports without the, all right, we got practice at 5:30. We got to get there. Da, da, da. We got a game on Saturday morning at 8
Yeah.
a.m. and everybody's got to get there and all the grandparents have to come or else they feel guilty. And, so it's like that almost takes the fun out of it. My son was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to soccer. Like maybe he would
That
if it were
totally
once
does.
a week. And
I
yeah,
Oh, yeah. So sorry to interrupt. I was
no,
a
not at all.
kid that did all the sports, and the thing that turned it off for me the absolute most was the insane parents that like thought that this was gonna like get their kids scholarships and stuff. And I wanted to just kick the ball and roll in the grass, specifically roll in the grass. I remember I was playing goalie and I was bored because you just sit there most of the time without any interaction. And I just was playing with the net behind me and my gloves got stuck in the net and everyone, like, and the ball was coming towards me and I was getting all anxious. And then I remember specifically the coach just screaming at me, like, "Get your hands out, like, jump." And then at that moment, I was like, this isn't good. Like, I'm not
This
stoked
isn't
on this.
fun.
Yeah. And so I think that was another realization for me, being like, yeah, I want to play, but like recess play games. Like I want to meet after school to do like the informal stuff. And I think that really lent well to who I am now. Yeah. And then, yeah, finding spot, like exactly what you said. I mean, I remember playing with Connects and Legos. And after school, I remember the best thing to do with my brothers was to make Lego sets and then roll them down our driveway and then see who won. And so just having those like the availability of just alternative playing things, even if it's outside or inside, just to have that, to let the kids play because they don't want to sit on the screens. That is an addictive, like immediate gratification, like lizard brain thing that they're just satisfying. But that's not going to be their default unless it gets an addiction thing. But yeah,
Yeah,
the default's to have fun. And that's
I
just their
never
version of
thought
fun. So
about
just channeling that.
I haven't thought about that before. It's kind of like alcohol, right? Like on any normal day, you'd be like, no, it's who wants to feel hungover? Who wants to put poison in their body? But you either get around people that are all out drinking or you had a rough day and you're like, oh, gee, I could use a drink. But it's like, you're not like, it's more of the, because of what it chemically does to you inside that makes your brain like connect
Yeah.
like the fun party to that. It doesn't connect the hangover to it. And it's is the same thing as the addiction with the screens. They know how to make your serotonin levels boost and release
Yeah.
the endorphins so that you feel happy, but you don't feel satisfied. And being outside,
I mean, heck, look at the
rolling.
games that we have. I remember, I mean, even if you look at the video games, I mean, I played computer games growing up and I played video games, but if you look at what I was really into at 5th grade, I was like really into RuneScape. And that was like the entire thing was crafting and going outside and like finding monsters and caves to go into. And like that totally like got into my brain. But the slowness of the game, the way that you had to walk everywhere, like there was no run in the game. You had to walk across this like 100-mile map. And all of my friends played this game. And it was this slow paced. Sometimes there's fighting for sure, but you could just go mining if you want. And it was like, it was so slow. And even the games now that they do, like I feel sorry for the kids that have to deal with like it changes so fast. The reaction times are fast. Like instead of me just like clicking and then you see the guy walk and you're like, oh my God, he's walking. I did that. Like I think the reaction times of the games now have really lent poorly. If you do want to get your kids into games, I'd recommend RuneScape because it's just a fun little adventure game where you walk around. But the slow pace of the games, I think, is worth mentioning.
There's a lot of science behind that. And I've said it before on the podcast that when your brain, especially as it's forming as a child, gets used to this. And it's even with the TV as far as, Coco Melon and stuff like that for the little ones, this
Yeah.
fast paced change, their brain gets used to all those screen changes. And then when they don't have that, it actually gives you anxiety. And it happens to us as
Yeah, it's
adults
like
too,
getting
but
off the
yeah.
what is it, the airport thing, the walking pedway, and then as soon as it stops
Yes.
and you're at that very end, there's like that jolt, and you're like, oh, well, now everything sucks. Like, so,
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, my kid does watch Coco Melon. I'm not saying that, I follow all of my advice, but I'm aware of it. So when she's like, I want Coco
yeah,
Melon, I
yeah,
want Coco Melon, I'm like, okay, I know why she's saying that. And even my son, he'll play video games on my husband's old N64. So it's like the hand control is still connected to the box. It's so funny because like
I
his
love
older
it.
cousins will come over and be like, what the heck is this? Don't get too mad. It'll yank it right off the display.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it is crazy. I wonder where, I mean, and I've been hearing too, my kids aren't in the school system, but I've been hearing that more and more classes at younger and younger ages are actually turning to computers to do schoolwork to avoid whether it's, printing of the books or carrying around the books. I don't know if you know any truth to that and what harm that could do to kids as they grow up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the amazing skill that you can give someone is, I mean, we've been doing the skill of writing for 10,000 years at least. And the virtue of that is how that can change into other things. And the creativity side of things, I mean, that's really where my brain goes to first, is the fact that, like, we're going to have a generation of kids that don't know how to draw. Like, they're not going to be as comfortable with the pencil as you and I would be. So, yeah, just seeing what that looks like. And then, I mean, even taking it a step further, I mean, AI was not around when I was in college, and seeing the insane amount of like immediate gratification of the, like, just, yeah, Googling the answer or screenshotting the answer and AI telling you it immediately, like that, like, where are we going to be? It's terrifying. Like, hey, I'm a fan of AI and automating stuff. So where like, do my job for me, maybe pay me money and then I can go out in the woods and enjoy myself. But
Hmm.
I think right now it's just getting a tool to cut corners, and it's really challenging. And it's started in college, it's getting into high school, and I don't know how far down the line it's going to go, but at one point, are we disabling these children mentally just for not having them uh, just critically think? And that's a scary thing for me. But even the fact that I think that my own personal conspiracy, which is kind of more of a silly thing, is that sunglasses companies make the lenses a little bit more magnified. That way, if you wear them all the time, your eyes are going to get tired and crappy. And then the sunglass frame companies also make prescription glasses. So then it's like feeding and making it like its own security. But I mean, imagine
I
the
mean, you
eye
pretty much
wear and
just
tear.
described like Pfizer and the FDA. Like they're like one
Yeah.
hand in your pocket, one hand in mine.
So I mean, imagine that with kids. I mean, yeah, the brands that you have for these iPads and just like the wear and tear on your body that it takes for you to stare at stuff, your brain, I mean, therapists 20 years from now are going to have a field day with all these people. Glasses are going to go way up because we're not giving these kids blue light glasses when they're on the screens for 8 hours a day at school. I mean, I haven't seen direct impacts of it, but I would, if I knew that was what, like if I had a kid and that was what's happening, I would be exactly where you are, Cheryl.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I don't know, you just think about how these kids are just detached from kind of like everything. I think a lot about this too. Once I started really looking outside, like, okay, what are the bees doing out there? What are these ants doing? What are those birds doing? Everything has this sort of survival instinct. They're looking for food, they're looking for shelter, and they're looking to procreate and, you know, keep their
Yeah.
babies healthy enough so till they can survive on their own. And it's funny when you think about human nature today, we've kind of taken all of those survival things off the plate and we're kind of like, hey, you don't need to worry about any of it anymore. We gotcha. But that also takes our purpose kind of away from us. When I don't have to grow food because I can just
Yeah.
go to the store or they'll even just deliver it to me. So I don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about babies. You know, a lot of places it's like, oh, you don't need kids anymore. Like, just go have fun. The kids are overrated. And, you know, a lot of messaging. That's the kind of messaging I got growing up watching Friends and Sex in the City. It was like, oh, yeah, I don't want kids. I'm good. I'm good. I can
Yeah.
travel and be fulfilled. And, you know, shelter, nobody has to like really know they all just figure, hey, we'll find a contractor to build our house someday. So it is funny when you remove all those aspects of humanity and survival and then you see like depression rates kind of skyrocketing. You wonder too if those go hand in hand. Like I don't have a purpose anymore because now my purpose, like I was sitting in a cubicle for 16 years just working for the government, pushing papers here this way and that way, and nothing I did
Yeah.
really impacted anyone or had any impact on anyone's lives, right? And so, yeah, what does that, your
Yeah.
worth is gone. So I think about that a lot too. And now that I have time to sit and look at nature, I'm like, yeah, look at we all have the same purpose. Me and the stupid stink bug on my
I
screen.
I honestly, it brings me back to dolphins, and it's really stupid, but I think about dolphins have always been like this thing in my brain where when you put dolphins in like a secluded area and it's like a SeaWorld kind of thing where like they're in like this kind of like sanitized tank and they're doing tricks, like that's what they're doing for food and they hate it, right? And that's not pleasurable for them to do those tricks as much. Now, it's been studied that when you release those dolphins out into the wild, they have their whole life. They're doing the whole process of surviving, of making sure there's predators not around, and like being in a group, the social settings. And then on top of that, once that foundation is set, then they actually teach the other dolphins those tricks. And that's like the creme de la creme. That's like the bonus on top. But if you take that bonus and then make that your entire life, like exactly what you're talking about, that's when the misery comes in. The thing that is the auxiliary frivolence is now, or frivolity, I guess is a better word for that, because frivolence isn't a word. That's when it becomes like painful. And so I think we see that a lot in our own society where it's like, yeah, like I love chopping wood. I have to do that in order to keep my house warm. Like that makes me feel so good. And I go home, I'm like, yeah, I got to clean my house, got to chop wood, I got to do laundry. And then I'll have an hour to play guitar and play music. If I go home and play music all day, I'm going to hate it. So finding those balances, I think, is really important. I know that's a really big cop out to say balance, but yeah, I don't know. I said enough about it. Dolphins. Remember
No,
dolphins.
well, no. And I mean, I envisioned this dolphin after they're, fighting off the killer whales. They're like, want to see a trick? I can balance this ball on my nose. But
Yeah.
it's so true.
Yeah.
Yes, when you take like something that you love and you're doing it all day long, like playing music, or you have to do that for money. Now your brain is kind of stuck. You're like, well, I kind of just wanted to like
Yeah.
play music because I like playing music. And now I know I have to get this song written because my producer needs me to have 12 of them written by December. And yeah, you definitely, the fun of it gets taken out of
And
it.
I think
So
that's like super tied into like, yeah, I mean, being on an iPad, it's kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's fun. But if that's what you do for school, if that's what you do for hanging out with your friends, and then that's how you game and that's how you relax, like it just becomes this mind-numbing depression like medium. So yeah, mediation's fantastic. Heck, I mean, my kids probably at some point will have iPads in their hands, but I'm going to try to limit that as much as possible because there's so much to see in the world. And I think if you don't have enough opportunity for your kid to get out, that's probably because you just need to change the scenery.
yeah.
And I think a lot of my friends that have told me about depression and their anxiety and how things go, like once they change their literal physical setting, it just stimulates your mind more and you don't worry about that stuff. So those ruts that we get into, I think is terrifying.
Do you have to live in a country setting to use that book and do your nature journal, or can you be in a city?
Yeah, I made this for literally anybody. A lot of this is like go to your local park, go to your balcony, like at your apartment complex, any of that stuff. Like it's totally up for interpretation. And then yeah, you go out in the woods and go really far with it, but it's really meant for everybody, which I'm pretty stoked that I thought of that.
Yes.
But yeah, the goal for it is like finding adventure in your own backyard, whether that's 10 square feet of concrete that you see an ant on, or it's the woods behind your house.
Right. And they usually communities have some sort of community park or garden or space that,
Yeah.
everybody can use. Even New York City has Central Park. So it's there.
Yeah.
You don't have to look under the subway
So
car.
yeah,
There's dirt.
and I tried to also I priced it really low. I think they're you can get them from me for $10. I think online they're like $12, but I tried to price them as low as possible. That way I can just get I want to get it in kids' hands. Like
Yeah.
this is not a moneymaker at all. Trust me.
Well, I know.
But
I just wrote a children's book and
getting it out there. Ah,
everyone was like, yes, you need to write something for people to buy if you want to have this online platform. And I'm like, well, I interview homeschoolers because I don't know how to homeschool. So I'm interviewing the people who do. So I feel dumb writing something about how to homeschool. It's literally the premise of my podcast that I don't know how to homeschool. So I was like, well, I was noticing that as I'm teaching my kids, I'm like, nothing talks about how to call 911 from a cell phone, especially if it's locked. And
oh yeah.
do we even talk about stop, drop, and roll anymore? Is there dare anymore? What do you do if a stranger comes up to you, or the online stuff? So yeah, that's why I wrote my Let's Talk Emergencies book. But yes, going back to that.
I saw it in the corner there. I'm like, dang, that's some nice color in there. You got a good artist.
Well, that's because I paid at the wazoo for her because I wanted it to look good. But then I realized you don't make anything from selling children's books. So I got a really pretty, colorful book. Here. No, but I love the idea of what you're doing. And I think just teaching our kids, like I do a nature study with my son now just because I don't know anything about nature. And I find that like it is so interesting. And I'm going to get your book too, because I like the idea of going out and journaling and them having like a physical thing that they can use to either write in or kind of remember the event. First of all, for homeschoolers, that's so cool because at the end of the year, the school year, teachers give the parents, here's the big thing of, the folder of all the projects. See what we did all year long. You couldn't do this at home. But it gives you as the parent homeschooling and the child a kind of finished product of, hey, this is what we did. We from start to end. And this is what we learned. And we have a physical evidence that we did that. And also over the years, you go back and look through your old stuff and you see all this cool stuff that you learned in nature. So I love that idea. So is it
I'm glad.
A lot of journaling, like your experience, what you see. Is there actual educational stuff that you're explaining to the child, or more sending them out to find little adventures on their way?
Oh, man, that is the question.
I can edit that out.
So this book has like drawing pages. So the kids kind of go from like ages 3 to 11. 3 is like assisted if the parents want to do it with them. But there's a lot of drawing. Like today I saw this, and you draw whatever it is, and then you talk a little bit about what you saw. So it's yeah, today I sensed, today I felt. What was really cool about what I saw today? And so those are basically, there's a lot of entries about just like general stuff that you do want your kids to remember. And then it's broken up into activities. So you can go out and there's a page on how to make a tree fort, or the benefits of a rope swing, just anything to get them outside. Like what constitutes a bug, right? Like the 3 different parts of a bug that make it a bug, like 2 antennae, 3 parts of their body, 6 legs, and there's an activity based all around that in the book. So there's crafting pages, there's activity pages, and there's also reflection pages where you can go back and be like, what was my favorite thing about going outside today? Like, if I could spend the day outside with anybody, who would it be? And it's really cute. Exactly what you're saying. Like 5 years from now, reading that, you're gonna be like, oh, it says like my brother Eric or my Nana or like whatever. So there's a lot of different, it's not just a straight nature journal. I was thinking about that, but I wanted to make it more Anthony, and my brain just goes to activities. So
Yeah.
very activity heavy. And yeah, I've gotten some really fun reviews back from it. And I actually post a little bit of the happy faces of kids that are using the book on my social media. So if you want to check out Outdoor Anthony, they have like, I have a little highlight reel of all the happy kids that are doing it. And I just got another one this morning, which is adorable. So
All right. Well, we will get your book and send you a photo of my son as well.
beautiful. Yep, he's going up on the wall.
I love that. And you know what's so cool too? I mean, because a lot of times, like as the parent that didn't grow up in nature, you get out there and you're like, now what do we do? Because to me, it's just, it's
Yeah.
cold, you know. But especially up in
Yeah.
if you're in the Northeast like I am, I mean, you could take that book and you could do one for each of the seasons, because you're going to see something different, whether it's fall or spring or winter. You know, it's all going to be different, but it directs you so that you don't have to sit there and say like, okay, let's, take out your little matchbox cars and drive. If if you don't want to get down on your hands and
Yeah,
knees and drive around
exactly.
it guides you to do different things and learn together. That's really cool. I love that. I hope you continue
That's my
on
hope.
with a series, and as the kid gets older. And what I was also going to say too is, for the homeschooling parent, there's something we kind of call like family style learning, and also like learning across subjects, which this is
Hmm.
great for that. Because so you take out your nature journal, and you go on a little walk, and you're observing nature and stuff around you, but then you're also writing. So your kids getting the experience of writing. They're getting story, because they're like, well, I saw this and it made me feel like this. So they're kind of learning their English, their words. You can use sticks to do some math, or okay, let's, how many rocks can we
Yeah.
find? All right, if we add 4 more, how many would that be? And just, you can kind of bring your math into it from there. You can talk about history. You can take anything that you learned that day, right? And say, well, let's go look up the history about that, either whether it be on the all evil chat GPT or the internet, but or go to your library and find a book on, maybe the history
Yeah.
of the first quartz rock that was ever found, or blade of grass, or dandelion. Who discovered a dandelion? Where do they grow all over? Do they have any health benefits? So you're getting the science in there and the history. So, parents might look at, like homeschooling parents might look at it and say, oh, that's just another book to add to the curriculums we already do. But it's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
can literally be your curriculum. You have this sort of, unschooling approach where you're just letting your child guide you on what they want to know about, and you tailor it, and you're learning the whole day. And I tell you what, you're learning more than a kid sitting in a classroom for 6 hours is going to learn.
That's true. There's also, yeah, I think I really like a couple of the activities that I put because it's scalable. Like there's one that's how far can you jump? It's called Leap and Lemurs. And so if you can jump like 5 inches, well, that's the same length as like a cricket can jump. And then we keep going and like the goal is to jump as far as however you want to jump, but there's thresholds. So you can come back to the same activity a bunch of times and be like, all right, well, maybe I can make it to what was another one that's in there, like a frog or whatever. And then same thing with hanging. So like, how long can you hang on the bar in a playground? And so like there's little check boxes, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, like to see how long you can do. So there's challenges, I guess, is what you can say.
Brilliant.
For that exact thing. Yeah.
If you have
you don't
boys,
need to like, this
that
is
is
kind of like a
what-
recess book.
Yes, that is what boys like to do. The challenges. I can, and then compete with their friends. You know how far I can jump and how long I can hang. My son was just doing that the other day on the swings with his friend, having little challenges. So I love that, and then relating it to an animal. And so if you were using this as your curriculum, okay, if you can jump as far as a cricket, let's go find out 3 facts about crickets today. And so you're just
beautiful
learning more. I love that. I am definitely going to get this book, and I will report back to you with a smiling photo of my son.
Hey, I'll put it right up.
Off of the monkey bars.
Yeah, don't sue me.
Anthony, anything else you wanted to let people know about? Where can they find you? I will link everything in the show's description so they don't have to go far, but if you want to let them know.
Let's see. So I really, I have everything through my social media page. I'm starting to create kids videos to go along with some of the activities. So I have like Anthony goes sledding. Anthony traces leaves on a piece of paper, and it's very like 3 to 5-year-old focused. Activities that's on my Outdoor Anthony Kids. It's what it says, kids at the end, YouTube page. And yeah, there's a whole bunch. I would say some of my videos that are on my regular social media that have gone viral have more of an adult twist to them just because of the jokes. But yeah, there's plenty of, every week I try to get a new skill out there for people to learn. So
awesome.
I'm always happy to chat. If you guys have ideas or anywhere, just hit me up. I'm very open to messaging with anybody and talk to them.
Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much tell us the name of the book again.
This is My Epic Nature Journal by Outdoor Anthony, or just Anthony Porter, however you want to say it.
Anthony, thank you for being here today. This has been so fun.
Cheryl, you rock. Thanks for doing what you do.